Welcome, everyone. Yet another Drink While You Think episode coming at you from the Acuity team. I'm your co-host, Kenji.
I'm Matthew.
And no guest today. That's kind of too bad. But last week's
we had a good run.
We had a great run. We'll get some more on there, but that was a great one last week, talking with Michael about acquisitions. So before we get into what we're going into, what are we drinking today, Matthew?
Well, I'm pouring out the Kenji special. So I think you're doing the same.
Oh, yeah, I'm doing the same thing.
So this is actually the last beer in my fridge. So it's a milk stout. I can't remember what is it, like the Dallas Cowboy game. That was the fourth quarter porter. What's the name of this
fourth quarter porter? This one I haven't really named it yet. It is the milk stout, and I'm very proud of you, right? Why? Because what else are you doing right now?
Well, you said I have to pour it into a glass, and I have to not drink the last ounce. So
you pour it in. It enhances the beer tremendously. You get the aroma, man. You get all the stuff. You get and these are the bottom of these do have a layer of yeast in there that kind of end up like a little bit off flavor. Anyway, cheers, dude.
Cheers. You can hear the chickens approve. So
yeah. What do you think of that one?
I think it's nice. It's a smooth stout. So
yeah. You like the porter a lot too. You like both those, right? Those are your two kind of favorites.
Stout. I usually like stouts the best, and then porters after that. But I like both of these. Those are, I don't know what kind of flavorings that are natural in stouts. But what was this one supposed to be? What were you going for?
Again, I'm trying to do everything pretty basic right now. But this one thing I wanted to do. This is a milk stout. It's the only thing I've added to it. There's not truly milk in a milk stout. They have lactose sugar in it, which kind of gives it a smoother flavor, a little bit sweeter, kind of a sweet stout. Just because I wanted to kind of play around with a little bit. You like to laugh when I talk about the mouthfeel of the beer. But this alters that a little bit by adding the lactose sugar. So it's good. It's a good type of beer to be drinking this time of year. So
that makes sense.
But I would like to start playing around a little bit more with like adding coffee and vanilla and chocolate and fun things like that, but right now I'm just trying to learn the basics, but it's still a lot of those characteristics still come through. So
coffee first. Coffee first if you're taking requests.
Okay, coffee first.
No flavors except for coffee. Yeah, that's a nice just add to a beer, I think.
I'm happy with this one. I've got a few more surprises coming of more things I'm going to brew up here. Probably may have to wait until I was going to try to do one last weekend, but I have to wait till after the holidays because I looked at all my timing. I'm going to be with my in-laws in Florida, and I'm like, if I start something now, I'll have stuff fermenting and going back here, which could be a little bit funky. So anyway, we'll have some more stuff coming. I was going to talk about this week, things weird things that our firm does.
Weird things our firm does. It's going to be a long episode.
Well, no, I thought I'd zero in on one area in particular. And I guess I started with, I want to talk sales and marketing, but before we get into stuff Acuity does, I guess I want to get into overall what we think the challenges that most, including us, but most accounting firms, some of the problems that most accounting firms have with sales and marketing. So what are the things that we think we see that like most people, including us, do wrong when it comes to sales and marketing for accounting?
The first one, let's talk about clients that we already have. We do what they ask instead of what they need, which is kind of bad if you think about it. So what I mean by that is if they hire you to do the tax returns, you are laser focused on executing on their tax returns and you aren't thinking about what they need and providing the right level of service. So that's a big one. That affects churn, which to me is a function there. But I think the other thing is people mostly are just, I think broadly, people are just very happy to just answer the phones when people call and don't really have any proactive, other than the natural stuff they do in the community, don't have a proactive kind of side to their marketing and sales efforts.
Yeah. Well, let me True. I like that second one. I guess when you think about acquiring of customers, I mean, I guess when I think about the way we used to do it back in public accounting, right? That is all just direct sales. That is relationship,
Partners. Yeah, that's like
100%, right? That's it.
Business owner typically being the one to do that as opposed to a sales team. So.
What do you think most firms do that now? That's still the dominant way that most firms do it?
The thing that I've seen with the 7 firms we've looked at in diligence is that all but one, the primary closer is the owner of the firm.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we're talking to that one now that has something different, but that has a single person though. So typically that rainmaker person is the firm owner, which is a limiting factor to kind of value and growth and different things, if you want to kind of get philosophical probably.
Yeah. What about, are you seeing, so back when you were in public, did you guys even have a CRM system? I guess you had to have something, right, to track leads. I mean, you were a top 25 firm, so that was
yeah, but only a few people had it because the licenses were real expensive and it was really crappy. So I was a decent sales partner, but I didn't even have a CRM access. So I just had to kind of come up with my own methodology and had my own little way to track things. And it was more like a move people through stages kind of thing, but it wasn't electronic. It was like I carried it with me. It was like notes.
Matthew's little notebook, his CRM, his actual moving people.
So
everybody okay over there?
Dogs are fine. They're attacking some poor squirrel.
Yeah, well, I would say that I think that today still many firms operate that way, right? Not really any kind of a CRM system on the sales side. It's a dominant kind of rainmaker, usually the owner. Marketing tends to be pretty limited. We've got a website. I think there's probably even some solopreneurs out there who probably just use a Facebook website.
Yeah, a lot of people are blogging now. Like progressive, yep. Like people are seeing blogging as being progressive. I think that's and putting content out there. I don't know that people are thinking about CTAs, right? I know I don't really. I feel like we're just touching on what CTAs should be, or calls to action, or CTA.
Yeah. So what Matthew means by calls to action are most people would see those as a simple version of that would be the sign up here button, right, on a website, the call for you're requiring the prospect to take some form of action. But those are typically pretty rudimentary. So exactly like that, like sign up for our newsletter, click here to schedule a meeting with someone on our team to talk about our services. But probably the ultimate call to action we've always talked about is the buy now button, right? Like you get someone all the way through a sales process. Like that's the ultimate call to action.
That's the holy grail, right?
That's the holy grail of trying to get to that. And I think
as long as they don't churn after the first month, right?
Yeah. Have we ever had that on? Did we ever get one up at one point on the way? We never did we?
Didn't yet. So we've thought about it a lot of times.
Yeah.
So we think I think the cleanup services are the closest thing we can get to that. Like just start your cleanup, and because that's such a simple engagement letter for us to get started.
Right. Yeah, I think it would be, you get that going. I mean, I guess a good example of someone who is doing it is probably QuickBooks Live, right? They have a little bit of an unfair advantage in that they can push that out through their own software, and someone's already purchased software for them most likely without ever having to talk to a salesperson. But in essence, they're getting that. And I think that's one of their new pricing schemes too, is they have added now in every engagement has got cleanup now in QuickBooks Live. So that's a new addition that they come with all of their accounts. But I think that's something that we've talked about trying to move more to. I think it's rare, like right when I think about the mistakes we've made. I think our first step was realizing that, to your point, sales, the value of the company is lower. The growth of it's probably going to be lower if only you or I can sell, right? That's just a natural limiting factor. So I guess it was what? How long ago? 5, 6 years ago when we were like, we need to build something different.
Yep.
And we've spoken a lot on that. I know I've led a number of times some different discussions about how to build an outbound sales team. And that's just the methodology of you go out and find your own leads. It's kind of I always say it's the opposite of the relationship selling. Like, right, there is no relationship. You're going to try to establish one. This is not, hey, Matthew knew this person because it's a neighbor down the street or their kids play soccer together. This is never heard of you guys before. I've got to go get a bunch of lists of leads. I've got to go find some way to engage with them, typically over email and over some phone calls. We used to call that a cadence, of where you'd kind of alter those things up and try to warm that relationship up to the point to where someone goes, okay, fine, I'll take a phone call with you guys and let's talk about it. Right.
Right.
And that was, I think we thought, pretty modern in the accounting field. I would say it's still probably not very largely used. Have you seen, like, who else have you seen that actually has an outbound cadence in our profession?
Some of the CFO firms have them. So
Mm-hmm.
I can't remember which. I think it's called Now CFO. I think their BDRs hit me up every once in a while, or SDRs, whatever they call them.
Yep.
They hit me up every once in a while to meet the owner of Now CFO or whatever. But I haven't seen a bunch of other ones. I think a few people have salespeople. I don't know that they're doing a ton of outbound sales, though. Outbound cold calling and cold emailing, like at the level that we're doing it.
The only other ones I saw we see Bench doing that, obviously. I think some of that slowed down a bit, but Bench, I think Pilot probably has done a few. Anybody who had any kind of venture funding has definitely played around with that. So you can look at all the ones who've raised capital have
That's true. Scale Factor had a group of SDRs.
Have done that.
Great. Yeah.
Our discussion, so I guess pivoting this into like now, I wouldn't, like, if someone came to me now and a firm owner said, how do you get sales going? Would you recommend someone start an outbound sales team like right now?
Oh,
What
that's
would be your advice to somebody?
Well, you want at bats. Outbound's a good way to get at bats, right? So I think outbound has to always play some kind of role, but I probably think that you want it to be about a quarter of your sales would be great. You want a quarter of them to come from maybe customer referrals, a quarter of them to come from kind of high profile people in your firm, relationships, and a quarter maybe coming from inbound. Yeah. I think would be a healthy group. So I like that. Right now I'm really not very bullish on outbound generally, but these things go in so many cycles. Like, they seem so cyclical. Yeah. But, like, who knows if, like, next year people like start answering the phone and start responding to texts, and you know what I mean? Like, I don't know.
It's hard to know.
It's just hard to know because, but I would probably encourage them, if they had limited resources, to move more towards like a heavy content marketing strategy with SEO and kind of like a hyper local kind of marketing thing. We're actually going to put out our first marketing hire. I'm just sent it to Kelly today, actually, to put a first internal marketing hire that's just going to 100% devote their time on creating, kind of content, hyper local web pages, what we're doing in Austin, what we're doing in Atlanta, what we're doing in San Francisco, and kind of some of the things that we're doing there.
I'm in agreement in that I don't, if someone were to ask me about, like, hey, Kenji, I saw you a couple of years ago present on this outbound sales thing, I think I'm ready to do it. I think I would tell them, maybe dial it back a little bit, but the value we always saw was there's a tremendous opportunity to do experimentation, because really to do outbound sales, it is a whole scale play. It's a repeatable process if you're doing it right. And so you can run really great, we always thought like great experiments on things, right? Let's go ahead and play around with the email text, the subject line, call scripts. Let's play around a little bit with who we target, what industries seem to be, resonant with these things. So it's I do think all of that, especially when you're first designing it, really gets your head in the mentality of who is my customer and what is my message going to be to them? And you just get a tremendous amount of no's. That kind of sucks, but like you get over that pretty quick. And you also build, so I love that it also builds that internal resiliency of like, you know, it doesn't feel good to get rejected, but once you build an outbound sales team, it just forces you to get over that, like, oh, I got turned down by 99 out of 100 people, right? Because it just is it builds kind of a little bit of a constitution and you're like, okay, we took a risk, no big deal. But otherwise, I do think we've both seen that it seems to be in a down cycle, whether that's permanent or not. I mean, who answers their phone these days for calls, you know, for anything, or emails of like, hey, let me reach out to you. I mean, it's just not happening. So it does seem to be changing. And you mentioned before, I was going to get to that, like where do we think firms should be going, or what are we thinking about? And I think you mentioned kind of some things over on the marketing side. Do you want to expand on any of those?
Yeah, I mean, I'm thinking about it when I think about if you only had one hire to make. When I think about value in the sales and marketing function, like our closer, like having a closer, a salesperson, regardless whether they're doing inbound or outbound sales, like having somebody to close clients that's not the owner, that's got to be one of the more valuable hires. Like spots in our organization, that's just tough to replace, tough to like. Probably one of the most valuable people in our organization is sitting in that account executive chair right now, because they, you know, take off your and my time, right? Because all the inbound goes to them, even if it's relationship or otherwise. They're able to walk people through the process. They don't do squirrely things like us, like skip steps or anything like that. They follow the process all the way through, so people have more consistent experience by the time they get to onboarding. So when I think about that, if you're talking about a hire or where you would focus, like I think like a single hire, you'd have to have one of these salespeople that could close deals by themselves. I think that's number one. Number two, then, is kind of on the content side, like creating some funnel for those people, whether it be, I mean, because you either have inbound funnel or outbound funnel. So I think that's one. I'm not big on the paid though. Like I don't think paid's a thing. I think we're competing with QuickBooks, we're competing with Gusto for the same words. Like those are just not economical. People don't know what they're searching for a lot of times. It's a crapshoot.
It is tough. I think it's I agree with you though on having that account executive, someone else who can literally replace the owner's time and be able to close a deal. Like our Tyler is incredibly valuable to us. That's our account executive. And he just, because to your point, he follows the process, his responsiveness is so high, right? That I can't think of how many times I've screwed up deals, mostly because of my inattentiveness to certain steps, or I'm just distracted on something else. And I feel like those are found deals right there with somebody who's going to be disciplined about it, which has been great. So that's first. Historically, we said the second one used to be someone to go and set appointments or to go and qualify leads, right? And I agree. I think that's important to an extent. I think it's becoming less important. I think we're starting to see the age of prospects. They want to self-qualify. You guys tell me clearly what you do. Let me take a look at you, and I can kind of help self-qualify, right? Which is then, to your point, leads into content. Why I think content is becoming so much more important. Of having good, solid content is really where people like. Again, I don't want someone from Amazon calling me about, hey, do you want to buy something in our store? Like I want to go and look. I want to get research myself, right? And that's just I think consumers are being conditioned so heavily right now on how to buy based on our new e-commerce preferences and how we all shop for things. And we as firms need to do a better job of trending that direction, right? Of making the experience feel like, well, here's why I'm willing to go ahead and not just drop $20, but we've all spent more than that on Amazon or somewhere online.
Yeah.
Because there are different things there, right, that make that purchase feel comfortable and trusted. And we're not there yet in the accounting space. People are like, well, I don't know yet. You're going to be in my books, and it's not a tangible good that I can return if I need to, So
I think it's around the corner though, with credit cards and deal and dispute charges. I think it's really close. Like I think it's really close to around.
Well, you said it earlier, right? I mean, probably the easiest way to get someone to give a credit card and say, hey, I'm going to buy sight unseen, is use some kind of money back guarantee. Hey, you don't like it, I'm going to cancel immediately, right? I'm sure we'll refund you. No big deal, right? So there's some ways that I think we could get.
Credit cards come with money back guarantees anyway. You can dispute anything.
Yeah. But getting people to pay up front would be, I mean, a huge step. I do think it's going to become more on content. I think that content's changing. We're hearing, you know, audio, video, not just written word, and websites are becoming way more important. So I talked this week too. I told you, a great conversation with a firm out of South Africa. It's probably the closest I've ever seen to a firm like us. And it was just a mutual friend introduced us, and it was like, we both were kind of like, this was just a great call, right? When you kind of talk to somebody who you're like, oh, we're interested in the same things. We're kind of in the same line of business, and we're actually doing it in a similar way. It was really fun. I mean, we talked about some sales and marketing things, and like, yeah, they're very, very heavy SEO, inbound, good content. But also, one of the interesting characteristics was they focused mostly on tech startups, right? And so they talked about how they've been conditioned to think about selling and driving customer acquisition much like technology companies do. And so we both kind of laughed about like, yeah, that's probably where people tend to think that you guys do it so unique. Well, not really. We do unique compared to accountants. We do it very matter-of-factly compared to what a tech company would do. Like same thing, same playbook. But they were very similar in that same regard too. So I do think there's some opportunity for people to start going that direction. But you think paid is dead though, huh? Or not dead, it's not effective.
It's just really hard for accounting, like service firms, to do paid, because we're competing with, like, tell me a keyword that we're not competing with all the technology firms.
Yeah.
So like, who has a bigger budget than Intuit or Xero or Gusto or Bill.com? Like, if you're trying to get bill pay, you're competing with Bill.com. If you're trying to get, and all the Bill.com's competitors, or you're trying to do, bookkeeping, you're going to fight with Intuit and all their competitors. I mean, payroll, Gusto, and all their competitors. It's just interesting. So,
I was talking to another group of firms on a separate Slack workspace we're all on, and one of them had shown a screenshot of Google advertising, and they put their name in, and they have a very specific name, right? It's not just like, Bookkeepers Are Us, but in their very specific kind of trade name. And in the ads, if you search it, in the ads that came up there was QuickBooks Live. And so we were all talking about that. Like, that's crazy. Like, that's just insane, to where there's nothing about accounting or books. It doesn't have any terminology in their trade name at all about that would necessarily tell you like accounting. But QuickBooks is literally out there, and they're a longtime QBO partner, right? And so just the fact that their own name, you pop in there and up pops QuickBooks Live. I mean, you're going to have a very difficult time, to your point, going out there and beating those guys at their game. And so that's a challenge.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah. I think it's going to come down to people creating unique content that is specific to their firm. I mean, there's always going to have the big box like QuickBooks Live. I don't care what I get, but you may say, hey, I'm an e-commerce company. I'm a distillery. I'm whatever I am. I want to be with an accountant that actually knows some of that and has some good content that can kind of help me out with it. So I don't know. We'll see. It'll be interesting. I think I would encourage folks to kind of check out what we're doing. I tell people all the time that like, we just love to experiment, and you and I kind of like probably lighting money on fire at times for some reason and just trying things out, because otherwise we get bored. The amount that we've probably spent on things in the past few years on crazy ideas, but we're always happy to go in and kind of, as we say, screw things up for ourselves and for other people first, just to learn. So we're going to be doing some things, I think, coming out next year that'll be a little bit different than most, as usual.
Definitely
there. Anything else on sales and marketing? I mean, I wanted it to, as we think about like drink while you think going forward, I've always thought the probably the unique part about what we're doing here is we're typically talking about just things, you know, just things that they're going on inside of firms, right? We get asked a lot about, hey, what things happen inside of Acuity. And I think there's other places that are way better than us to talk about like news in the industry. You know, Blake and David are much better. You know, Future Firm, you know, with Ryan's and stuff. There's all that stuff's much better about like what's happening in the news and the industry. Like we just happen to like, we're just firm owners, right? So we're dealing with firm stuff. And I think that's the stuff that's been trying to think about putting more content up for other firm owners to see that.
Yeah, I think the big thing that I'm thinking about for next year is there's talks you and I both get asked to do all the time, like all the time. You know, I have a 1 hour talk on kind of getting started in accounting. I have about a 1 hour talk on fundraising and angel investing versus venture capital versus all that kind of stuff. So one of my 2021 goals is to get those 2 1 hour sessions that I do into kind of 5-minute video pieces, like chopped up into 5-minute video bits over by the end of the year. I want to have like both of those presentations, all of that content online, because I just get asked it so many times to be able to kind of have that for people out there. So that'd be good for my goals. So that's just an example of like, I'm sure everybody out there that has a firm right now has that too. Like the thing what's that thing that like when somebody asks you, you can go talk for an hour without thinking because you talked about it so much. I have like, yeah. So I think that's my goal for me. And then if we get me done, we'll start doing yours. So
I think it's great advice though. I mean, everyone's got something they can talk about for an hour, and it probably comes from either they're just done it so many times, they have experience in it, or they just have such interest in it, right? It's something that's so interesting to them. And obviously when those two things intersect, great experience plus it's just something you geek out on, you love. Those are great topics to go out there and talk about. I think people find that. I mean, I don't think there's any better example than looking at like YouTube or Reddit and the crazy deep dives, and people think that, oh, no one else in the world cares about this really weird, strange thing. And actually there's huge communities built around these really you think are very narrow topics that are interesting to people. So I would encourage firms to go out there and explore those as a firm owner, as team members out there. I think that's an area we could get a lot better in is getting other team members to go out and, you know, showcase them, because you and I both know that they know way more than we do and are way more experienced in the industry in many things. The problem is they're much more shy than we are. You and I have like, you know, we just don't really care if we look silly or, you know, we're sitting here and we get 2 views like next week on this video. It doesn't really matter to us. So, but otherwise from an expertise standpoint, our team members are just incredibly deep and rich with their knowledge of things that happen in the profession. We were just both on the Gusto Partner Advisory Council meeting this week. And I just sit there thinking, trying to be as helpful as I can to the good folks that are good partners at Gusto. But I'm like, man, our team members know like your guys' product incredibly deep, right? We don't go into payroll very often and run payroll. And so anyway, I think there's more opportunities for firm owners to also think through their firms about some of their team members who are really expert in a particular piece of software.
Yeah, I realized, you know, they were asking if we had gotten people advisory certified, and I know you did because you were testing out the thing for them.
I was number one in the world. I'm the very first person ever certified.
But I haven't done it. I didn't do that thing. But I was curious, and today I went and looked at how many people advisory people we had certified at Gusto. We have 36, all of whom know the system better than you.
All of them. I did it because I had to speak this summer on people advisory. I'm like, I better go get certified. And I will say that also I give them a lot of credit on their certification process, because Jacqueline Anku, who I think is wonderful, we knew at Xero before she went over to Gusto, did a very nice job with it. I think it speaks to content when we're talking about the sales and marketing, because is Jacqueline and the team selling Gusto? Of course they are. Why wouldn't they be, right? But the certification process was done in such an informative, interesting way, right? Probably one of my favorite parts about it was she interjected the history of like how different things in the human resources have come about throughout the year. I thought it was timelines and it's kind of cool stuff. You're like, oh, I didn't realize that's where workers' compensation came from, or when the advent of the 401k was. And it just, maybe that was only me, but I just thought that's an example, I think, of that content to where, yes, you're showcasing you and your firm's expertise and trying to get someone warmed up to trust you to do their services, but also you're absolutely giving some information away that I thought was educational and interesting, right? That's an example, I think, of where probably us as firms we need to get to. So we're like, oh, nobody wants to hear about accounting. Well, people like a Will Lopez have made concepts surprisingly interesting over time, just with some of their production value and mostly his personality. So,
yeah.
Anyway.
Well, I'm glad I waited regardless, because now if I do it, I get 4 hours of CPE. I know you don't care, but it matters to me.
Well, so. It matters to you because you're still active. I'm an inactive status CPA, so it doesn't really matter.
Scrub.
To me. It reminds me, I got to go back and look for any place that people still have me listed as a CPA. I always get that always makes me nervous. I'm like, I do not like to be referred to. I will never tell people I'm a CPA. I'm like, I'm an inactive CPA. I think of all those like scandals, whether it was it like coaches, like it happened like in the coaching profession, didn't it? Like, were there a bunch of football coaches who had kind of gone back and like fudged a little bit on their resumes and stuff? I'm like, man,
one really big high profile one, like the Notre Dame coach or something.
Notre Dame coach, yeah. Who was the Georgia Tech guy? What was that, O'Leary? Didn't he go from Georgia Tech? I think it was like Georgia Tech to Notre Dame. He got bounced from Notre Dame and then ended up at like Central Florida or something like that. But if you're not an active CPA, don't say you are. So
yep, definitely not.
Anyway, I wish, we can't, I need to still create my own brewery on Untappd so we can go rate my beers. I think I'm 10 different I think I'm like 10 batches and I think I'm double digits now if I were to look. I don't know. What would you rate it? I mean, you and me, I could care less. On the regular Untappd scale, what would you rate it?
Would I rate this?
Yeah.
I'm gonna go.
It's in it. Oh, it's in the 3s. Are you sure?
Yeah, it's a stout, dude.
That's a stout. That's true. You give a big bump based on style, on the type you like. Which that's fine.
Oh yeah. I would put your porter at 4.25 and this one at 4 right now.
You and I are. I do love that we're both doing this together because you and I have such different tastes.
That's all right.
Because just like last week, we were drinking the Monday.
That's not surprising.
That's not surprising at all. What we do both love is beer and doing this. What we do is have different ways of liking it, that's the perfect metaphor for you and me. But yeah, I like this one. I think this one for me, I'll actually rank them in terms of my 10 different beers I've brewed. I think this for me comes in, it's either second or third. My favorite still is the Saison. Well, I did 2 Saisons. Those are actually both at the top. And then this and the Oktoberfest to me are really kind of neck and neck, but it's above the porter for me. So
yeah, the Saison, I don't remember the Saison. I need to go taste because I don't know if you gave me a multiple of the Saison. I think I only have one.
I've done it twice. I have one left. I think my fridge, or maybe 2 that I'm kind of holding out on just in case somebody comes in. I think I gave one of them to BG.
Yeah. Did
you give those to him?
Of course I did.
Okay, good. We'll make sure. But I thought those were good. Anyway, well, another good episode. Next week, you know what I'm going to do next week for this? And you should too. We've got our holiday party next week.
We do?
We have a happy hour.
Do we really?
Yeah, it's supposed to be an ugly sweater kind of, happy hour. So I'm gonna throw on my ugly holiday outfit for Drink While You Think and just roll right from here right into.
Oh, did you do? I didn't see did you do anything for the whole company this week on a loom or anything? Or did you miss this week?
I did not yet. I sat there and agonized all morning about it.
Well, you should definitely talk about the happy hour, this because I didn't even realize that. So
I did last week, dude.
I watched it. I guess it didn't resonate with me.
I talked about it last week.
But I do have to say, my backyard. I just want to show, since the light, I couldn't do my backyard, but my backyard is pretty colors.
Oh, that's beautiful. Beautiful colors there.
I got the yellows and the reds and the oranges so I just wanted people to know that I, from the lighting perspective, couldn't couldn't show you guys, but I don't know if it's as pretty as yours, but I got some good color here too.
Well, I was very I was very intentional. I kind of there's just a certain tree like that one right there. It's kind of outside of my office window. And it's just popping and kind of going. I love that one. Looks just awesome. So I was like, I got to go sit behind that one, give people a different view. But there's other spots that aren't as good. But it's just, yeah, I love it out back here. And I think I tell people all the time, man, Atlanta does the fall and spring so well. Like we
kill it.
I don't know anybody else who does it as well as we do. The fall and the spring, we crush it here. So you got to enjoy it. So cheers, dude. Yeah.
Cheers, everybody. We'll see you.
Thank you for joining us. Don't forget to subscribe, like, leave some comments. And we'd love to have you on. Cheers, everyone.